Today on Gamers Play, Retro is coming back to restructure games of the future. Hide your alligator shoes as we talk about the punch and click adventure, Brock the Investigator. And the FGC prefers retro fighters over current fighters? All this and more right now. Let's go. What's up, awesome gamers, and welcome to Gamers Play, where we are all about the fun in gaming. I'm your host, Hud Zero, the old school gamer, and of course a friend of the gaming community. We have a lot to catch up on, but first, a word from our sponsor. Wow, that's some good coffee. And right now, if you put in the code word HUD0, you can actually earn 10% off this delicious brew. You can get it in light, medium, and dark brews. A large variety. My favorite is Headshot. So come along, join in the fun, and get your gamer grind on today. Wow, that's some good coffee. Alright there, gumshoes, we're gonna go into the dark world of the slums and drums of this punch and click adventure called Brock the Investigator.
Buddy.
Enough. You're gonna regret.
What happens when you cross a sleuth with a croc? You get a green scale gumshoe named Brock, lay it on his bills, and have a foggy memory and packs a mean punch. His nightmares of his foggy past is a link to the loss of his wife Leah, and it's up to you to take on cases, find clues, get info from characters along the way, while trying to maintain a good relationship with Graf, your acquainted son. Brock the Investigator is available right now on Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Steam. Review is coming this Friday.
Welcome to the theater of the eye. 500,000 polygons a second.
Me.
16 million colors. Wreak some havoc in your head.
Say, sir.
Can't beat the classics. You know, this is the best time to become a gamer. Gaming is starting to expand to almost the stratosphere. And all of you who actually have not gotten into gaming, what are you waiting for? It's always the best time to play. Besides, video games is the biggest entertainment market in the world. But we also have to get into something that we like to call the word of the gamer. Halo Infinite will continue with a new season. Season 3, Echoes Within, starts on March 7th. It's going to include a 100-tier battle pass, new maps, and a new game mode. There's also going to be 2 new weapons that is going to be part of your arsenal. One of them is going to be the M392 Bandit, a new awesome weapon, and of course the Shroud Screen, so you can actually hide from your enemies. I believe this is actually going to be an awesome season. Let's rock. Jin Kazama has just been announced for Bandai Namco's new Tekken 8. He is the third new character who's been revealed for the new series, and it turns out that it's shaping up to be an amazing fighting game. The FGC is actually ready for this game, as well as the Street Fighter 6, which is coming out later this year. Who's going to come out on top? That's all up to you. And speaking of Street Fighter 6, Capcom Pro Cup 2023 is going to be getting a huge injection of money. It's going to be huge, gigantic, monstrous. This is the biggest that's ever been in a prize pool for the fighting game community, and everybody's excited. It turns out that Tsujimoto-san, the CEO of Capcom, is injecting $2 million to the prize pool. $2 million. That's a big deal. It's a huge deal. And guess who's going to be getting the first place prize? $1 million. $1 million. That's a huge deal. If you are not in the fighting game community or the FGC, and you have not gotten into any fighting games, now is your chance. This is actually going to be in an injunction of the Street Fighter 6, which is going to be coming out on June 6th this year. And it's going to be introducing a huge roster of characters. Some familiar, some not so familiar. They just put in the reveal of 3 characters. And right now, I can never be that much excited. It turns out also, as we get into the weaves a little bit, that the fighting game community is actually being noticed. Slowly but surely, Evo is actually going to be getting a $25,000 injection for all of the fighting games that are going to be in Evo this year. This is huge. This is gigantic. This is monstrous. And you know, I have never been so excited to get back into competitive fighting. I've been holding off. I've need to dust off my controller. I need to get my instincts back, and I actually want to get myself involved. It turns out that now this gives everybody an incentive, an opportunity to actually hone in on their skills and give it a shot. Don't be afraid. It's not that hard. Yes, it takes a long time to master, but once you get down the basics, mastering is only a couple of button mashes and a couple of swirls of the joystick away. And speaking of that, Evo this year for 2023 has just announced that Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is going to be returning to the stage. Now, what is the significance of this? It turns out that the Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 community, or the Marvel MVC community, has still grown strong. And everyone who is still playing Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 right now is more than willing to actually get back into the fray. But now that they added the $25,000 prize pool for all of these games, now you're going to probably see some of your favorites actually returning. Could this be an opportunity that Marvel vs. Capcom 4 be announced at Evo this year? It's yet to be determined. But right now, I think it's a time to actually redeem themselves for the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite that actually failed to gain any major traction. Probably not for the game mechanics, but probably for the lack thereof. So let's see what happens. I think this is actually a great idea. And when it comes down to retro gamings, well, that's on to the next subject. Let's see where we go from there.
Okay, we've got good news and bad news. The good news is these games kick serious butt. The bad news is you're the butt.
Not ready.
And now it comes down to my last segment. Final thoughts. Well, it turns out the industry has kind of flipped itself on its head. You know, what comes around goes around. It turns out that some things tend to be doomed to repeat itself. Some for the better, some for the worse. In this terms, it actually is for the better. What I'm talking about is retro gaming. For the last decade, it turns out that a lot of industry pundits are kind of swimming along the fact that, hey, we had a good thing going back in the 80s, 90s, and probably the early 2000s. And sometimes what ain't broke, you don't have to fix. Well, it turns out that they didn't think about this until now. But back then, they actually tried to fix it so much that it actually broke. But now, they get the idea that, hey, these games, the older games, the classic games, the arcade games, the games for the NES, the Super NES, the Sega Genesis, all dating all the way up to probably the 360 and the PS3 age, they actually had something going. And it turns out that the industry almost lost that. I say almost just because right now I think they're starting to get the idea that what's old can be new again. You see, there's a whole new generation of gamers out there who have never experienced any of the games that we have played when they first got introduced. Contra, Double Dragon, Pac-Man, Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda. The list goes on and on. Even some classic pinball games that are actually very, very good. Some of the youth have never actually had hands on. There was a bygone era of the arcades that actually kind of went away. But now, for some odd reason, the arcades are starting to resurrect. They're coming out of nowhere. People are building their own arcades inside their own home. Whether it be from Arcade 1-Up, their own makeups of cabinets made from scratch with their own CRT TVs and speaker systems and light guns, made from scratch. Some of these guys actually reverse engineered some of the games that actually of yesteryear. They make multicades with using Raspberry Pis and other programs. These are the days that now the games that were kind of niche at the time are now becoming the norm. And this is a good thing. This is the great thing for the industry. Now it boils down to retro games that are getting resurrected, made new. Look at what happened to Metroid Prime Remastered. It actually sold extremely well, to the point that it actually sold out. Not once, but twice. And idea that's coming along that in the fighting game community, that people actually love the games that they used to play: Street Fighter 3, Third Strike, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Tekken Tag Tournament 2. These are games that came out decades ago, and it's still going strong today. And of course, they actually tried to reinvent the wheel, but it turns out that people actually enjoy the games of old because they were just so well polished. Some games are actually broken, but actually broken in a good way, because gamers actually kind of exploited it, and it actually turned out to be more fun than frustrating. So now it comes to a choice. Do we try to forget of all the games of yesteryear and say, oh, we just need new stuff? Or do we actually grow with it, let the classics actually come with us and go into the future with us and become bigger and actually make the games that are coming out better? That is something that we, as gamers, need to start to embrace. This is HUD Zero, the old school gamer, and the lover of all things gaming. And remember, game on and stay awesome.